coincidental collision. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans wafted through the air as Vera Nichols wiped down the counter of grounded beans for the third time that morning. The cafe, nestled on the ground floor of the prestigious Obsidian Tower, catered to the constant stream of suit-clad professionals who needed their caffeine fix before disappearing into the elevators. "Order for table 12, called out Javier, her coworker, sliding a tray toward her. Vera nodded, tucking a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear. 6 months at this job, and she still hadn't adjusted to the morning rush. She wasn't meant to be here, not forever at least. The half-finished portfolio of architectural sketches in her apartment was testament to that. This job was supposed to be temporary, just long enough to save for graduate school. Yet here she was, 28 years old, still delivering lattes to people who barely looked up from their phones. "One Americano, one espresso, and a blueberry scone," she muttered to herself, navigating through the maze of tables. The cafe was particularly busy this Tuesday morning. Outside, autumn rain pelted against the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a cozy atmosphere inside that contrasted with the frenetic pace of service. Vera balanced the tray carefully, sidestepping a briefcase that jutted into the narrow path. Between tables, table 12 was occupied by a man she hadn't seen before. He sat alone, absorbed in whatever was on his tablet screen, his dark gray suit impeccably tailored. Unlike most of the building's regulars, he wore no company badge, just a simple silver watch that caught the light as he scrolled. "Excuse me?" Vera said, approaching the table. "Your order?" The man didn't look up, his attention fixed on whatever email or report had captured his focus. Vera cleared her throat. "Sir? Your Americano and espresso?" When he finally glanced up, Vera was struck by eyes the color of aged whiskey, warm, deep, and somehow melancholic. He nodded briefly before returning to his screen as she set down the Americano. The building's heating system kicked on with a sudden blast, causing her to startle. The cup tipped, splashing hot coffee onto the pristine white tablecloth and narrowly missing the man's tablet. "I'm so sorry," Vera exclaimed, quickly reaching for napkins. "It's fine," the man said, his voice unexpectedly gentle. He didn't move. To help, though, still scrolling through his device. Something about his casual dismissal both of her and the incident sparked a flare of irritation. Vera had been up since 4:30 a.m., had dealt with 17 demanding customers already, and was running on fumes. "You know," she said, dabbing at the spill, "Oh, it might help if you put your very important screen down for 5 seconds when someone's handing you scalding liquid." The cafe fell silent around them. Javier, who was passing by with another order, nearly dropped his tray. The man looked up slowly, surprise evident in his expression. For a moment, Vera was certain she'd just lost her job, but then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth twitched upward. "You're absolutely right," he said, setting his tablet down. "My apologies." Vera blinked, thrown off balance by his response. "Well, good. Enjoy your coffee." As she turned to leave, she heard him say, "My name is Harrison, by the way." "Harrison. Wells, I didn't ask," Vera replied without turning around. But there was less edge to her voice now. What she didn't see as she walked away was Harrison watching her go, an intrigued expression replacing his usual reserved demeanor. Nor did she notice the discreet logo on his tablet case, the same stylized, that adorned the building directory in the lobby, marking him not as just another tenant, but as the owner of Obsidian Properties and, by extension, her boss's boss's boss. Let me continue with parts 2 to 5 of the story, making them a bit longer than part 1, to develop the narrative more fully. Part 2. Quiet Connections. The following week brought an unusual pattern to Vera's routine. Every morning at precisely 8:15, Harrison Wells would appear at table 12. Always alone, always in a perfectly tailored suit that seemed to change only in subtle ways, a different pocket square, a slightly darker shade of gray. And every morning, he would order the same thing, an Americano and an espresso. "He's here again," Javier whispered one Thursday morning, nudging Vera as she steamed milk for another customer's latte. Table 12. "Your admirer is not my admirer." Vera rolled her eyes. though she'd already noticed Harrison's arrival. He's just a creature of habit, like half the people in this building. Creatures of habit don't tip 30%, and specifically request the same server every day, Javier countered with a knowing smirk. And they definitely don't stare at said server when they think no one's looking. Vera felt her cheeks warm slightly. Don't you have orders to fill? Despite her protests, there was something undeniably different about her interactions with Harrison. Unlike the other customers who treated her like part of the furniture, he made eye contact. He thanked her by name, having learned it from her badge that second day. And most surprisingly, he actually seemed interested in what she had to say. Architecture? He'd asked one morning, after spotting sketches peeking from her apron pocket during a quiet moment. What kind? Sustainable urban design, Vera had answered, surprised by his genuine curiosity. I believe buildings should work with their environments, not against them. Their conversations were brief, but increasingly frequent. Harrison never revealed much about himself beyond his appreciation for good coffee and apparent flexible work schedule. Sometimes he'd arrive with folders stamped with the Obsidian Properties logo. But when Vera asked if he worked for the company, he'd only smiled enigmatically and said, in a manner of speaking. Meanwhile, tensions were brewing behind the scenes at Grounded Beans. Vera couldn't help but notice the hushed conversations between Diane, the cafe manager, and various suits who would show up for impromptu inspections. Rumors of lease issues and rising rent circulated among the staff. Heard they want to put in one of those trendy chain places tomorrow, the newest barista confided during a rare slow moment. Something with a stronger brand presence. Vera frowned. Here for years, we're part of the building's character. Character doesn't pay premium rent, Tamara shrugged. That afternoon, Vera was surprised to see Harrison return outside his usual morning visit. He claimed a corner table with his laptop, working steadily through what appeared to be architectural blueprints, a coincidence that didn't escape her notice. Renovation plans? She asked, delivering a fresh Americano he hadn't ordered but she'd made anyway. Harrison quickly closed the laptop. Just some building improvements we're considering. He gestured to the empty chair across from him. Your shift ending soon? It was, and against her better judgment, Vera found herself sitting down. Their conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from sustainable architecture to their shared love of old jazz music. For nearly an hour, she forgot about work hierarchies and impending threats to the cafe's existence. You know, Harrison said as they prepared to leave, you see buildings differently than most people, not just as structures but as living parts of the city. That's exactly it, Vera replied, pleasantly surprised by his understanding. Each one has a responsibility to the people who use it and the environment around it. He studied her face for a moment, something unreadable in his expression. What would you do with this building if it were yours to redesign? Vera laughed. The Obsidian? That's a bit above my pay grade. Humor me, he insisted gently. And so she did, describing her vision for the imposing Towermore green spaces. Community areas where different businesses could interact, sustainable energy solutions. Harrison listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed surprising technical knowledge. Neither of them noticed Diane watching from behind the counter, her expression darkening as she made a phone call. 2 days later, the notice appeared on the staff bulletin board. Grounded Beans' lease would not be renewed. It had 60 days to vacate the premises. Brewing complications, the cafe felt like a different place after the notice went up. Gone was the warm atmosphere, replaced by quiet desperation as everyone worried about their next paycheck. Diane had all but disappeared, leaving daily operations to the senior staff, while she supposedly fought the decision with building management. Vera found herself watching the door each morning, both hoping for and dreading Harrison's appearance. When 3 days passed without him claiming his usual table, she felt an irrational sense of abandonment. But their conversation meant nothing. Was he just another corporate type who'd found a different coffee shop with better prospects? On the 4th day, her anger crystallized when Javier dropped a glossy brochure on the counter beside her. Look what I found in the management office, he said grimly. Seems they already have plans for our space. The brochure showcased a sleek, modern cafe concept called Elevated Grounds, promising premium coffee experiences for discerning professionals. The architectural renderings showed none of the homey touches that made their current space special. No local art on the walls, no mismatched vintage furniture, just chrome, glass, and corporate efficiency. This is dated 6 months ago, Vera noticed, her stomach sinking. They never intended to renew our lease. It's not even the best part. Javier pointed to the small print at the bottom of the page. Guess who's behind the development? Obsidian Properties, and below that, an elegant script, a Harrison Wells enterprise. The betrayal hit Vera like a physical blow. All those conversations, all that interest in her ideas, had he been mining her for free consulting work? Getting insider information on the cafe's operations? The architectural plans she'd glimpsed on his laptop suddenly made perfect, horrible sense. I need some air, she muttered, untying her apron. Outside, the autumn rain had given way to crisp, clear skies that seemed to mock her dark mood. Vera paced the perimeter of the building, her mind racing. She remembered Harrison asking about her vision for the building, nodding thoughtfully at her ideas. Had he been laughing at her naivety the entire time? A sleek black car pulled up to the building's executive entrance, and there he was, Harrison Wells, stepping out in a charcoal suit, deep in conversation with 2 associates. Vera didn't think, didn't plan. She simply marched straight toward him. You knew, she called out, her voice carrying across the plaza. You knew all along, or a Harrison. Looked up? Surprise quickly replaced by something like resignation. He murmured something to his companions, who discreetly moved away. Vera, he began. I can explain. Explain what? How you sat there day after day, letting me serve you coffee while you plotted to destroy my workplace. How you asked about my dreams just to, what? Get a good laugh? Steal my ideas? Harrison's expression remained frustratingly composed. If we could discuss this somewhere private, there's nothing to discuss. Vera cut him off. You're not just a customer. You own this building. You're shutting down our cafe to replace it with some soulless corporate chain, when you couldn't. Even be honest about who you were. Something shifted in his eyes then, a flash of what might have been regret. You're right about who I am, he acknowledged. But you're wrong about my intentions. Your intentions are right there and glossy. Full color, Vera shot back, thinking of the brochure. Elevated grounds opening soon. Were you studying us? Taking notes on what to improve in your fancy new concept? A small crowd of curious onlookers had gathered, including several Grounded Beans regulars who were watching the confrontation with interest. This isn't how I wanted you to find out, Harrison said quietly. How exactly did you want me to find out? When I showed up to work and found the doors locked, Harrison reached for her arm, but Vera stepped back. Please, just come upstairs too. My office, I'll explain everything. I have to get back to work, she replied coldly. For however long I still have a job. She turned to leave. Harrison called after her. Vera, the plans you saw, they weren't what you think. But she was. Already walking away, her vision blurred by tears she refused to let fall. Bitter truths, sweet intentions. The next morning, Vera arrived at Grounded Beans to find an envelope with her name on it propped against the locked door. Inside was a key card and a note in precise handwriting. 30th floor, 8 a.m., please. Nearly threw it away, but curiosity and, yes, a lingering need for answers got the better of her. At precisely 8:15, a small act of defiance. She stepped out of the elevator into the executive suite of Obsidian Properties. The receptionist, clearly expecting her, led Vera down a hallway lined with architectural models of buildings she recognized. From across the city, at the end, stood a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a breathtaking panorama of the skyline. Harrison stood as she entered, looking less polished than usual. His tie was loosened, and fatigue lined his eyes, suggesting a sleepless night. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. I'm here for answers, not pleasantries, Vera replied, remaining standing. You owe at least that much to everyone whose livelihoods you're destroying. Harrison nodded, accepting the rebuke. You're right. First, I want to show you something. He pressed a button on his desk, and a hidden panel in the wall slid open to reveal a large architectural model. Vera recognized the Obsidian Tower. Immediately, But this version was transformed. Green terraces spiraled up its sides. Solar panels glinted on its roof, and the ground floor featured an expanded space where grounded beans currently stood. "This is Project Renaissance," Harrison explained. "A complete sustainable retrofit of the Obsidian, designed to reduce our carbon footprint by 60% and create more community-integrated spaces." Vera approached the model, professional curiosity temporarily overriding her anger. The design incorporated many of the elements she'd described to Harrison during their conversations, but with refinements and technical solutions she hadn't considered. "This looks familiar," she said cautiously. "It should." "It's inspired by your vision," Harrison admitted. "But it's not stealing its collaboration, or at least that's what I hoped it could be." He handed her a folder containing detailed plans and a contract. "The cafe closure notice was premature in error from legal that wasn't supposed to go out until after I'd spoken with you. I've been trying to buy out Diane's ownership of Grounded Beans for months, but she's been resistant." "Buy it out." "Why? Because she's running it into the ground," Harrison said bluntly. "The quality has been slipping for years. More importantly, she has no interest in the sustainability initiatives that would be required under the new building standards." Vera's mind raced. "So elevated grounds is a placeholder concept," Harrison finished for her. "Created to secure the space while I negotiated? The real plan was always to offer you partnership in a reimagined cafe that would anchor the community. Spaces in the renovated building." He gestured to a section of the contract. "Full creative control over the design and concept. Profit sharing from day one. Support for your graduate studies in sustainable architecture with potential for involvement in future Obsidian projects." Vera sank into the chair, overwhelmed. You barely know me." Harrison's expression softened. "I know enough. I know you have vision and integrity. I know you care about creating spaces that serve people and planet alike. And I know talent. When I see it." He hesitated, then added more quietly, "And yes, I enjoyed our conversations more than I should have, given the circumstances." "Why the secrecy? Why not just tell me who you were from the beginning? When's the last time someone spoke to you the way you spoke to me that first day?" Harrison asked. "Most people either want something from me or are too intimidated to be genuine. You treated me like any other person, and I valued that." Vera studied him, searching for deception and finding only tired sincerity. "I need time to think and to read this contract thoroughly." "Of course," Harrison nodded. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands regardless." As she gathered the documents to leave, a final question occurred to her. "What happens to the other employees? Javier? Tamara? Everyone else?" "That would be your decision as partner," Harrison replied. "But the budget allows for retaining the full current staff with improved benefits." At the door, Vera turned back. "Should have been honest from the start." "I know," he acknowledged. "Some habits are hard to break when you've been alone at the top for too long." A fresh blend spring sunlight streamed through the expansive windows of what had once been Grounded Beans, but was now Foundations a name. Vera had chosen to reflect both the cafe's signature coffee and its place as the cornerstone of the renovated Obsidian Towers community spaces. The grand reopening was scheduled for noon, but Vera had arrived hours earlier to ensure everything was perfect. The interior blended the cafe's original charm with sustainable innovations, reclaimed wood countertops, energy-efficient equipment, and a living wall of herbs and ornamental plants that purified the air while adding vibrant green to the space. Pastry delivery just arrived, called Javier, now the cafe's operations manager, and the special guest's coffee is ready. Vera nodded, adjusting a framed architectural sketch on the wall, one of her early designs for the space, now realized. In 3 dimensions around them, the past 6 months had been a whirlwind of construction. Permit applications, menu development, and intensive coursework as she balanced the cafe project with her first semester of graduate studies. Through it all, her relationship with Harrison had evolved from cautious professional collaboration to genuine friendship and gradually something deeper. They'd established boundaries, she reported to the board, not directly to him. for all cafe operations but worked closely on the larger building renovation that was proceeding floor by floor. "Is he here yet?" Tamara asked, arranging signature. Mugs locally made from recycled materials, of course, on the display shelf. "Not yet." Vera checked her watch. "But he's never late." As if on cue, the door opened and Harrison entered. He'd relaxed his style in recent months. Today he wore a charcoal sweater rather than his customary suit, though his watch remained the same. "Table 12 is waiting for you," Vera said with a smile, gesturing to what had once been table 12 in the old layout, but was now positioned beside the living wall. The small reserved sign placed on its reclaimed wood surface. Harrison took his seat, and Vera brought over a tray with 2 cups in, Americano, and an espresso. "For old time's sake," she explained, sitting across from him. "Some traditions are worth keeping," he agreed, taking a sip. "Everything ready for the opening? As ready as we'll ever be? The mayor confirmed she's coming, and the press is interested in the sustainability angle. And your professor? He be here to see his star student's creation?" Vera nodded. "It's bringing half the department. Apparently, a case study on foundations is going to be part of next semester's curriculum." They fell into comfortable silence, watching the morning light play across the newly renovated space. Outside the windows, construction continued on the tower's upper floors, where green terraces and solar installations were taking shape according to plans that now bore Vera's name alongside more established architects. "I've been thinking," Harrison said after a moment, "about what you said that day in my office. About honesty." "That was a long time ago," Vera replied. "We've moved past it, have we?" he asked, reaching into his pocket. "Because there's something I've been wanting to ask you, and this time I want to do it with complete transparency." He placed a small box on the table between them. It wasn't a ring box, as Vera momentarily feared they weren't quite there yet. Instead, when opened, it revealed a key. "The renovation of the North Tower begins next month," Harrison explained. "The client wants to convert it from offices to mixed-use residential with significant sustainability features." Requested the architect who designed foundations. Vera's eyes widened. "That's a massive project." "It is. Too big for someone still in graduate school, some would say." Eyes held hers steadily. "I recommended you anyway, not as my whatever. We are to each other. But as the most innovative young architect I've worked with." "Harrison, before you answer," he continued, "you should know that accepting would mean becoming a full partner in the architectural division of Obsidian. No more working for me in any capacity. Complete professional independence." The key gleamed between them, not a romantic gesture, but in some ways more meaningful. Recognition of her talent, separate from their personal connection. "Why?" she asked simply. Harrison smiled. "Because 6 months ago, an exhausted barista told off the owner of this building for not paying attention when someone was handing him something valuable. I'd like to think I've learned that lesson." Vera reached for the key, her fingers brushing. "His, I accept. On one condition. Name it. You let me buy you coffee sometimes." At table 12, as the first guests began to arrive for the grand opening, Harrison and Vera remained at their table, planning the future of buildings, of businesses, and perhaps of something that had started with a spilled Americano and a well-deserved reprimand. The Obsidian Tower gleamed in the spring sunlight, its transformation just beginning. Inside, foundations hummed with new life, a testament to what could happen when vision met opportunity, when pretense gave way to honesty, and when 2 people saw not just what was, but what could be.